She said it before she had finished deciding to say it. He was lying in the hospital bed with his eyes open for the first time in 11 days, looking at her with the expression of a man who has woken in a country where he does not speak the language. And the doctor had just said, "Do you know this woman?" And the room had gone very quiet. And his eyes had moved to her face and stayed there, searching. And she had thought, the men outside this door will kill him the moment they know. "Yes," she said, "that's my wife." He said it at the same moment she said the other thing. What she said was, "I'm your wife." She had been cleaning his room for 11 days. She had heard everything said in it. She knew about the internal dispute, the rival faction that had arranged the accident, the men stationed in the corridor who were loyal to the faction and not to him, and she knew that the moment he said, "I don't know her," they would know he remembered nothing. And a man who remembered nothing could not defend what he had built. And a man who could not defend what he had built would not survive the week. What she didn't know, what she could not have known, sitting beside the bed of a man she had never spoken to, was that Nikolai Voss had a real wife somewhere, and that the real wife had not come to the hospital in 11 days. And that this fact was, to several people in the building, the most interesting thing about the situation. Her name was Irina Sobol. She was 36 years old, 5'4", built solidly, the kind of woman who moved through rooms as though she had calculated the exact weight required for each step and applied it precisely. She had a daughter named Sasha, 8 years old, who was staying with a neighbor named Mrs. Benedek until Irina finished her shift. She had been cleaning the private ward of the Klinika Voss, yes, his clinic, his name on the door, for 2 years and 3 months. She had just told a man she had never spoken to that she was his wife. He was looking at her. She did not look away. His name was Nikolai Voss, 43 years old. Dark-haired, gray at the edges, a jaw that looked like it had been designed for making decisions and had been doing so without interruption for 20 years. He ran from a headquarters she had cleaned twice a week for 2 years without ever seeing him there, a network that her employer, the clinic administrator, referred to only as the organization, and in a tone that suggested the word was doing significant protective work. He had been brought to the clinic 11 days ago after a car accident on the highway interchange. The accident had been described in the intake paperwork as a collision with a vehicle that had run a light. The intake nurse had described it to the other intake nurse in the break room as something that did not happen by accident, and then had gone quiet when Irina came in to refill the soap dispenser. She had heard enough, over 11 days, to understand the shape of what she was inside. The men in the corridor were named Grishin and Petter. They rotated in 12-hour shifts. They did not speak to the medical staff except to ask questions, and the questions were always about the same thing: his condition, his consciousness, his memory. They asked these questions with the specific interest of people for whom the answers were not medical. On the 3rd day, she had heard Grishin say, on his phone, very quietly, that the situation would resolve itself if it went the right way. She had understood what the right way meant. She had understood it so well that she had gone home that evening and looked at Sasha doing her homework at the kitchen table and thought, I should ask for a transfer. And then she had gone back the next morning because they were short-staffed and Mrs. Benedek had said Sasha was welcome until 6. On the 11th day, he opened his eyes, and the doctor said, "Do you know this woman?" And she said, "I'm your wife." The planted detail she had not registered until this moment. In 11 days of cleaning his room, she had memorized, without meaning to, the photograph on the bedside table. A woman, dark-haired, fine-featured, not smiling. She was not in this hospital. She had not been in this hospital. And no one had mentioned her name. He looked at her for a long time. She kept her face still. She had learned to keep her face still in rooms where she did not belong, which was most rooms, which had given her considerable practice. "Give us a moment," he said. His voice was rougher than she had expected. 11 days of a breathing tube will do that, and he said it to the doctor, not to her. But he was looking at her when he said it. The doctor left. The door closed. Grishin and Petar were outside. She could hear one of them shift his weight. "You're not my wife," Nikolai said. He said it quietly. He said it the way a man states a thing he is certain of, even when he cannot account for his certainty, not as an accusation, but as a fact he is checking against the room. Her heart was going very fast. She kept her hands in her lap. "No," she said. "I'm not." He looked at her. Something moved behind his eyes, not anger. Something more careful than anger. "The men outside the door," he said. "Yes," she said. "How many?" "2. They rotate. The one on now is named Grishin. He has been calling someone every day to give them your condition. He used the words, 'It will resolve itself on day 3. He was quiet. "You've been here 11 days, he said. "I clean the ward. Tuesday, Thursday, and alternating Saturdays. You were brought in on a Tuesday. You heard everything. Private rooms are not as private as people assume," she said, "especially when the person in the room is unconscious." He looked at the ceiling. She watched him process this, watched the machinery of it, which was fast, and showed very little on his face, and was, even half-conscious and 11 days into a hospital bed, considerably more than most people had available. "Why?" he said. She knew what he was asking. "Because you opened your eyes," she said, "and the doctor asked if you knew me, and you were about to say no, and I understood what would happen after that. You don't know what would have happened." "I heard Grishin for 11 days, she said. "I know." He was looking at the ceiling still. A long pause. "You've just made yourself part of this," he said. "I was already part of it," she said. "I was in the room." He turned his head and looked at her. She met it. She had strong eyes, her mother's eyes, gray, the kind that people found difficult to hold, and she had never fully understood why. "Your name," he said. "Irina Sobel." "Irina." He said it the way you say a word you are checking the weight of. "You understand that I am going to need you to continue." "I know. It will be complicated." I assumed. "I cannot protect you and manage this at the same time," he said. "Not from in here. Not yet." "I'm not asking you to protect me," she said. "I'm asking you to be consistent." He looked at her for a moment with an expression she couldn't read yet. She would learn it later, but she didn't have the vocabulary yet. "You cleaned my room," he said. "Yes, for 2 years. 2 years and 3 months. I've never seen you." "No," she said. "You haven't." He was quiet. Outside, Grishin shifted again. A phone buzzed once and stopped. "All right, Irina Sobel," he said. "Tell me everything you heard." She told him. It took 40 minutes. He listened the way he apparently did everything, completely, without interrupting, storing it in some internal system she could not see the architecture of. She told him about Grishin's calls. The names she had caught: Marchetti, Fedotov, a third name she had heard only once, and was not certain she had right. The timeline of visitors, who had come and what they had asked the nurses and what the nurses had said. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Fedotov," he said. "Yes, you're certain." He said it twice on the 5th day. Clearly, he wasn't being careful yet. Nikolai's jaw moved slightly. She was beginning to understand that this was what his face did instead of showing things. "My head of operations," he said. "Lev Chesney. He'll come tomorrow." He's the only one I trust to reach without going through the ward desk. I need you to be your wife when he arrives, she said. To be my wife until I tell you otherwise. He looked at her. That may be longer than tomorrow. She thought about Sasha at Mrs. Benedict's, about the neighbor's patient expression that said, of course, whenever you need, but with a limit implied that was not unkind but was real. How long? She said. Until I know the shape of this, he said. A week, possibly 2. She looked at her hands. The left one, bare, she noticed him notice it. I'll need a ring, she said. Lev will bring one, and I'll need to know enough about your life to answer questions from people who actually knew your wife. A pause. Very brief. My wife, he said, has been in Zurich for 8 months. We have not spoken in 6. The marriage is... He stopped. The marriage has been finished for longer than 6 months. It simply hasn't been made official, because official creates complications. She looked at the photograph on the bedside table. She's not coming, she said. It wasn't a question. No, he said. Does anyone know that? Lev knows. Grishin and his principals may suspect. If they know she is absent and I have no memory, there is nothing to stop them from. He stopped again. The lie is necessary. I need you to understand that. I understand it, she said. I invented it. Something shifted in his face. Not quite the thing she would later learn to recognize. Something adjacent to it. You did, he said. Yes, Lev Chesney arrived the next morning. He was a compact man in his 50s with a gray beard trimmed to the same length as his gray hair, and the expression of someone who had been managing impossible situations for so long that impossible had lost its meaning as a category. He shook Irina's hand with both of his and said, "It's good to see you," in the tone of a man who had been briefed and was performing his briefing competently. He brought a ring. He had sized it from a photograph, which suggested he had access to information about her that she had not provided, and she filed this as something to think about later. After Lev left, she sat in the chair beside the bed, and Nikolai said, "He knows more about you than I've told him." "I know," she said. "Are you concerned?" "Should I be?" "No," he said. "Lev is careful with people I ask him to be careful with." He was careful before I asked. She looked at the ring on her left hand. It was a plain gold band, slightly wide, the kind of ring that doesn't perform anything. She had not expected that. She had expected something that announced itself. "It was my mother's," Nikolai said. "Lev keeps it. In case." She looked up. In case of what? He didn't answer immediately. Outside the window, the city was doing its morning inventory. Buses, deliveries, a school run she could hear but not see. "In case I needed it someday," he said. She told him to keep it when she died. She said I would know when. Irina looked at the ring. She thought about a woman she had never met keeping a ring in trust for a son who would know when, and the son lying in a hospital bed 11 days into a lie that had started in the mouth of a cleaning woman who had heard too much and made a decision faster than thought. She thought she could not have meant this. She kept the thought to herself. The complication arrived on day 4, in the form of a woman named Darya Fedotova, the wife of the man whose name Irina had heard twice on day 5, and who came to the hospital with flowers and the specific warmth of someone performing warmth very well. Darya knew Nikolai's wife, had known her for 11 years. She sat beside the bed and talked about the house in the south, a dinner party in March, a shared friend named Polina who had just had a baby, and Irina sat on the other side and listened and answered in the places where an answer was required with the vocabulary she had built in 4 days of 12-hour shifts beside a man who talked. Once she'd established she was listening, with a precision and a density that she was still mapping. She said the right things. She said them in the right tone. She watched Darya watch her and felt the specific pressure of being assessed by someone who was looking for a crack. There was one moment Darya mentioned a bracelet. A specific bracelet, something about a birthday. And Irina felt the silence before the answer coming and said, very calmly, I haven't worn it since the accident. The clasp broke and I haven't had it repaired. Darya's eyes moved to her wrist. Bear, of course, Darya said. She left 20 minutes later. At the door she paused and said to Nikolai that she was glad he was recovering, and she said it in the specific way that people say things they do not mean, but that carry a message beneath them. When she was gone, Irina let out a breath she had been holding for 40 minutes. The bracelet, Nikolai said. I don't know what bracelet. Neither do I, he said. I don't remember a bracelet. A pause. The clasp broke. That was good. It was the only answer that couldn't be checked, she said. He looked at her. You think fast, he said. I've been thinking fast my whole life, she said. It's a habit from not having a margin for error. He was quiet. Sasha, he said. Your daughter. She looked at him. She had mentioned Sasha once, on day 2 of the deception when she had needed to explain a phone call to Mrs. Benedek. She had not expected him to retain it. 8 years old, he said. Mrs. Benedek watches her. Yes, Mrs. Benedek has a limit. She has been very patient. She shouldn't have to be patient, he said. Lev will arrange something. A proper arrangement paid for as long as this takes. I'm not asking. I know you're not, he said. I'm telling you. There's a difference. He paused. Sasha can come here. She looked at him. She's 8, he said. She'll understand that her mother is here because... He stopped. What does she know? That I'm doing extra shifts for a patient who needs consistent care. That's close enough to true, he said. Most good lies are, Irina said. He looked at her with the expression she was beginning to learn, the one that required more of his face than he usually gave, that happened when she said something he had not seen coming. Bring her tomorrow, he said. If she wants to come. Sasha came on a Thursday. She sat in the chair beside the bed with her backpack in her lap and looked at Nikolai Voss with the frank assessment of a child who has learned that adults require evaluation before trust. He looked back at her. You're sick, Sasha said. Getting better, he said. Your head? Yes, my friend Luca had a head injury, she said. He forgot his dog's name. But then it came back. She paused. Do you have a dog? No, you should get one, she said. Luca says the dog helped. Irina, standing at the window, watched this and felt something move in the center of her chest that she did not have a name for yet. What kind of dog? Nikolai said. Sasha considered this with appropriate seriousness. Something big, she said. Small dogs are nervous. Big dogs are calmer. I'll take that under consideration, he said. Sasha nodded. She opened her backpack and took out a workbook and began doing her homework, clearly having decided that the visit was satisfactory and the next appropriate action was schoolwork. Nikolai watched her for a moment. Then he looked at Irina. She raised her eyebrows slightly. He made a small movement with his jaw, the thing he did instead of smiling, that she had been watching for 4 days and was beginning to read. He was going to be all right. She had understood this intellectually from about day 2. She understood it now in a different way. Fedotov moved on day 9. She heard it before she understood what she was hearing, a change in the corridor, a different quality to the shift change, a third voice where there had been 2. She was in the bathroom when they came in. She heard Grishin say something low, and heard Nikolai's voice respond. Flat. No alarm in it. The voice of a man who had been expecting this. She opened the bathroom door. 3 men. Grishin, Petter. A third she hadn't seen before, heavier, standing closer to the bed than people stood in hospital rooms. All 3 of them looked at her. She looked at the third man. Then, she looked at Nikolai. He looked back at her and said, in the voice he used when he was telling her what was going to happen, "Call Lev." She had Lev's number in her phone, because she had always had Lev's number in her phone since day 2. She called it in the corridor. He picked up on the first ring. She said 3 words. He said 8 minutes. She stood in the corridor with her phone in her hand. 8 minutes was a long time. She knew what the inside of that room sounded like when people in it were about to do something irreversible. She opened the door. "I forgot my bag," she said. All 3 men looked at her again. The heavy one had a particular quality of stillness. She recognized it from a man she had known once, briefly, in a different life. The stillness of someone calculating how much a witness costs. She picked up her bag. She stood beside Nikolai's bed. She put her hand over his on the blanket. "Darya Fedotova sent flowers," she said, conversationally, to Grishin, as though she was making small talk. "The yellow ones, on the sill. Tell her husband they were a lovely thought." She watched Grishin understand that she knew the name. She watched him understand that if she knew the name, there were others who knew the name. She watched the heavy man's calculation shift. 4 minutes later, Lev arrived with 4 men of his own and a lawyer and a document that Irina didn't read, but that made Grishin's face go the color of old chalk. The heavy man left without being asked. Petter left immediately after. Grishin stayed for the document and then left too. The room was quiet. Lev looked at Irina. He said, "The bag." "I didn't forget it," she said. "No," Lev said. "I know." He looked at Nikolai. She walked back in. "I was watching," Nikolai said. "I know you were," Lev said. He wrote something down. He left. Nikolai looked at her. "You walked back in," he said. "You told me to call Lev," she said. "Not to stay in the corridor." "Irina, 4 minutes is too long," she said. "I've been listening to this building for 9 days. 4 minutes in that room with those men was..." She stopped. I walked back in. He was looking at her with the expression she now knew fully, the one that cost him something, the one that happened in the vicinity of things he didn't have words for. "The bag was a good idea," he said. "The name was better," she said. "Yes," he said. It was. Fedotov was addressed in the institutional way, which is the way that lasts. His access to the organization's financial instruments was terminated. His partnership interests reviewed. 3 irregularities discovered during the review that made the irregularities the story rather than the dispute, which meant the story resolved itself cleanly and without anything that required Nikolai to appear. Fragile in the resolving, Marchetti, who had financed the other side of the accident, found himself the subject of regulatory attention from 3 directions simultaneously. The attention had no obvious origin, which was the point. The real wife, her name was Vera, was informed by Nikolai's lawyer that proceedings would begin. She sent a 1-line response that suggested she had been waiting for the message. The photograph was taken from the bedside table by Lev on the day Nikolai was cleared to go home, and Nikolai watched it go without visible change in his expression. He was going home on a Thursday. Irina had 1 shift left in the ward. She had already arranged her transfer back to Zone A, which was the appropriate thing, the clean thing, the thing that returned everything to its proper shape. She was stripping the bed in room 7 when he appeared in the doorway. He was dressed. He was the first time she had seen him vertical, which reorganized something in her understanding of the proportions of things. "You're on Zone A next week," he said. "Yes, you requested the transfer. It's the appropriate arena," he said. She stopped. He came into the room. He stood on the other side of the stripped bed with a mattress between them and looked at her directly in the way he had been looking at her since day one. All of it, taking no shortcuts. "The ring," he said. She looked at her left hand. She had been wearing it for 9 days. She had forgotten several times that it was there. She had caught herself looking at it on the bus home, in the light from the window, thinking about a woman she had never met, who had said keep it until he knows when. She slid it off. She held it across the mattress toward him. He didn't take it. "I told you," he said, "that I couldn't protect you and manage this at the same time. Not from in there." "Yes, I'm not in there anymore." She looked at the ring in her palm. Her hand was steady. She had very steady hands, a useful quality in her work. "I lied to you," she said. "For 9 days I performed a version of your life I had constructed from what I overheard in a hospital room. I don't know your wife. I don't know your house. I invented a bracelet clasp. I am a cleaning woman, and I told a room full of people that I was your wife, and I have spent 9 days hoping no one asked me anything I couldn't answer." "You answered everything," he said. "This time." "Yes," he said. "This time." He paused. "There's a house in the south. It was mentioned to you by Darya Fedotova, and you didn't know it, and you answered correctly anyway." She was quiet. "Would you like to see it?" he said. She looked up. "The house," he said. "It has a garden. The housekeeper says there's something in it that turns red in November. She's been trying to get me to come and see it for 3 years." A pause. "Sasha said I should get a big dog. The grounds are large enough." She looked at the ring in her hand. She said calm dogs, Irina said. "She's specific about that." "I'll find a calm one," he said. "Nikolai, I know what you did," he said. "I know why you did it. I know that you walked back into that room when I had told you to call Lev, and I know that the reason you walked back in was not the bag." He stopped. "I was watching. For 9 days I watched you build something out of nothing and hold it together with your hands, and not once did I see you do it for yourself. You did it because you heard something you weren't supposed to hear, and you understood what it meant, and you acted. I acted because I was frightened," she said. "Everyone who does anything is frightened," he said. "The action is still the action." She stood with the ring in her palm. "I invented a bracelet," she said. "Broken clasp," he said. "Excellent detail. I'm serious. So am I." He looked at her across the mattress, the stripped, neutral, institutional mattress of a private hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and 11 days and a lie that it held. "I'm asking you to come to the house in the south. Not as my wife. As the woman who said a thing faster than thought in a moment that needed it, and was right." She was quiet for a long time. She thought about Sasha deciding that big calm dogs were the appropriate prescription. She thought about Mrs. Benedek's patient expression. She thought about the bus home in the dark, the ring in the light from the window, a woman she'd never met saying keep it until he knows when. She put the ring back on her left hand. She looked at him. "I'm going to need to know about the bracelet," she said, "in case Darya asks again." Something happened in his face, the full version of the thing she had been learning, the one that arrived now with all of its weight. "There is no bracelet," he said. "There never was one." I have no idea what she was talking about. "Then she was testing me," Irina said. "Yes," he said. "And you passed. We passed," she said. "You kept your face completely still. So did you." She looked at him across the bed. "I'm very good at keeping my face still," she said. "I know," he said. "I've been watching for 9 days. South November, a garden going red at the edge. A large and notably calm dog named something Sasha had decided before they arrived. The house with 3 colors of light in the evening, and one woman who had built a life out of what she overheard and held it together with her hands. She was not his wife. She was the woman who had said the true thing at the moment that required it, before she had finished deciding to say it, and had spent 9 days making it real enough to survive. Some things start as lies and become, in the living of them, something else entirely. She knew the difference. She had always known the difference. She stayed anyway. The moment she walked back into that room, when she picked up the bag she hadn't forgotten, that's the one I keep thinking about. Not the first lie. Not the garden. That moment in the corridor where she could have stayed and didn't. Tell me in the comments, when did you know she wasn't going to leave? Was it when she put the ring back on? Or did you know before that? I read every single one. If this kind of story is why you're here, the ones where the lie becomes true in the living of it, follow along. New story every day. One more thing. Sasha named the dog before she met him. She had the name in her head since the Thursday in the hospital. She hasn't told her mother what it is yet. Follow if you want to know, because the name is the thing that makes Nikolai understand he's been chosen just as much as Irina has.